should start.
Okay.
So I will call this work session, this July 3rd work session of the City of Brookhaven Planning Commission to order. And I guess we should take a roll call just for the record. Stan Siegel, I'm here. Commissioner Cameron is not here. Commissioner Jack Hundred,
Here.
President. Commissioner Adrian Schmidt,
Present.
President. Commissioner John Funny,
Present.
President. Commissioner Rob Francourt and Commissioner John Hess are not in attendance at the moment. So we have 4 members, and of course we have Director Susan Cannon and City Planner Howard Coonsky. And so I call this meeting to order. And I guess first is organizational and procedural items.
Well, I have a few.
Okay.
The first is we do have a special called public hearing of the Planning Commission on July 18th. Mr. Funny will be chairing that meeting. Mr. Siegel had prior plans and he is going to be out of town. I was not at liberty at that point when I tried to find out if you all were available to share what the purpose of the special call hearing was, in that we had not notified the county yet of our intent to annex Century Center. We notified DeKalb County on July 1st of our intent to annex Century Center Office Park. And with that comes the responsibility of the city to assign a zoning to the property. So the city has also initiated a rezoning on that property, which will come to the Planning Commission on July 18th. And it then will go to the Mayor and Council on Monday, July 22nd, and on Tuesday, July 23rd.
It's 7 o'clock on July 18th?
On July 18th, your Planning Commission hearing will be at 7 p.m. regarding the rezoning that the city has initiated.
Okay.
The rezoning that we have initiated is to PC3, which is Pedestrian Community District. The current zoning of the Century Center Office Park, as we are aware based on the county records, is OI, which is Office Institution, and OD, which is Office Distribution. The PC3 zoning that the city has initiated recognizes the existing built environment on the site and also allows for future redevelopment and future extension of uses. So that's the purpose of the PC3 district that we're proposing to zone that property to. The notices went out in the paper yesterday. Went out in the AJC yesterday, and the property was posted late afternoon, July 1st. So we have duly notified the county of the annexation, and we have duly advertised for the zoning hearing. So that was the purpose of the special call hearing.
And I know you're going to include a map in the actual packet. What's the property address? Off
the top of my head, I don't remember.
It's Claremont Road. It's Claremont 80. It's just north of the. It's north of the McDonald's on Claremont and 85.
Oh, okay. On the east side of 85.
It's bounded by the. I've got it actually on my phone. I can look it up.
What part of Claremont on the west, and the I-85 access road on the south, which also kind of curves around and comes up to the east.
Okay.
Yeah, you posted the signs.
Century Parkway sort of bisects the annexation. There are some parcels to the north and some parcels to the south.
Okay.
And it is the 100% method. The property owners requested to come into the city.
And Jack, you had a question for it.
What part of Brookhaven is it contiguous to? What city?
Southeast corner of the city from Claremont. This is on the east side of Claremont Road.
Okay.
Not including.
Brookhaven currently goes all the way to Claremont.
That's correct.
In that area. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And actually, I guess our line is the city boundaries. Are they down the center line of Claremont? Is that the official?
No, it's
No.
the east side.
It's
It is on the east side.
Claremont is
It's on the
already ours.
Okay.
And the DECA neighborhood is just north of that, between Claremont and Buford Highway.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, let me clarify. DECA is, of course, there are multiple neighborhoods in. DECA is the Dresden East Civic Association,
Right.
Right.
which includes, I'm actually not sure it includes all of those communities around Claremont. There was at one time, Claremont Terraces was not a part of it. They may be a part of it now. So it's a civic association that includes multiple communities, and which ones I'm
So it's generally just north and borders the north edge of
Yeah, the Marriott.
Century
The
Center
Marriott
and
is
so on.
The Marriott's included.
The Gables that are not,
Yeah.
but the Marriott is.
There's so
Storage
many acres
facility
we're
to the
looking at
west.
altogether.
Approximately 100.
100 acres.
What was the question? Oh, 100 acres.
I was gonna see if I could pull it up on my phone.
So
I
to
just
clarify this is, so that, to clarify, the property that's being discussed is really, is generally bordered by Interstate 85, Claremont Road, and Century.
And to the north, Century Parkway essentially
Yeah.
bisects. There is
Right.
land to the north of Century Parkway. That is
That's
included.
generally, and the other question, and generally, the Dresden East Civic Association generally represents communities from there north of Claremont on one side and Beaufort Highway. That's just general, yeah, I don't know whether they
Yeah.
represent on,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not sure how many of those they do or do not represent, but they have a website.
What's the name of the organization?
DECA, DECA, Dresden East Civic Association,
DECA A?
DECA.
Oh, DECA.
Yeah.
I'm actually, I think I might be able to open this on my phone and then I can show you. Let me go.
How many property owners are involved?
Let's see, there's,
Quite a number, or?
I have it all right here.
Yeah, well, just roughly, is it like 10
Or
or?
8,
It's
Okay.
Highwoods Realty, Highwoods Properties, Miss Crum, there's, the Marriott, Crum.
Is the Highwoods building in it?
Yes,
And
yes.
I think the FBI is in it, and Centers for Disease Control.
Department of Labor,
Yeah.
just, here we go.
Georgia Department, that triangular, yeah.
Yeah.
The triangular building is in.
Georgia Department of
Exactly
Revenue.
where it is.
Yeah, there was a time when people actually had paper, but I
Yeah, paper, it's not-
pull it up. That's
I
fine.
don't know if you can see it on here well enough.
And includes the apartments or does not?
You mean the map location?
This is,
Oh, the actual layout.
hold on, I'm sorry, I'll try to go really fast. I have a better one. This is kind of what the master plan looks like.
Okay.
It's the as-built plan?
It's the master plan with as-built and proposed uses, and you'll get that in your package. You will get your package on July 11th. We're actually still writing the staff analysis. It was very, 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 condensed, so there's that.
Okay.
So, Planning Commission, July 18th at 7, City Council, July 23rd at 6, City Council, City Council, July 22nd, Monday at 6, City Council, July 22nd, Tuesday at 7.
July 23rd,
July 23rd.
Tuesday.
22nd at 6, 23rd at 7.
Monday, the 22nd at 6,
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 23rd
Third
at 7.
Right.
And
So-
the two meetings is, one's the first reading and this other's the second reading type
Yes,
thing? Okay.
yes.
So does that work then, that the 23rd meeting is generally for decision only, or is it public comment at both of them?
Public comment, I would imagine, would be the second one. The public hearing.
The purpose of the public hearing, then the advertised public hearing is on the 22nd.
The 22nd?
On the 22nd, and what will happen is, the annexation will be on the same night, and then it has to go in the right sequence. So
Okay,
that's one, and there's also first and second reads for both of those,
okay.
so.
So the 23rd though, is there a public comment period as well, or is it generally for decision only, just a discussion among the city council and decision?
The recent, I kind of need to go into that with the next item, if you, okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I haven't,
I'm gonna explain that with the next item, if that's okay, Mr. Hunter, is that all right? In regard to other organizational procedural items, the other items that we have a revised calendar. And that kind of goes into what you're talking about, Mr. Hundred.
Are there any, are there anything, are any of our dates changed? I mean, we'll look, but just to,
Your dates, when you look at this calendar, you'll see, if you go down to April and go all the way across, you'll see that the mayor and council meeting was canceled. They had GMA.
Yes, okay, right.
And if you go further down and you go to October and read across, in italics, you'll see a packet date and a change date on the council.
Okay,
And then if you go one line down, you see November,
another change there.
you'll see the PC packet is received on 12/30, but your meeting has been moved to the second Wednesday because of that Christmas holiday. And then the line, there was one other item moved on here. Oh, I think that's it. So bold and italicized are the dates that are changed. And kind of to your question, Mr. Hundred, if you'll see, there's now only one row of meetings for council.
Okay.
In the previous calendar, you would have seen 2 rows for council. The intent here is to have this actually be the public hearing.
Okay.
What we're looking at is a change to first and second reads, but we're not there yet. So this advertised meeting will be the public hearing and the first read. So it gives the council an option to, in the second read, determine whether they need to have additional public comment.
Okay. So that's at council's discretion generally as far as public comment at the second
Yes.
meeting.
Under,
And we're looking at, so that's part of a practice that we're looking at whether we should change or not. So this is a step to identify this meeting as the public hearing.
okay. I know this is supposed to be 2014, right? The second Wednesday, 1/8/2014,
Yeah,
right?
good Scott's,
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Good catch.
And then,
we do pay, somebody pays attention.
Thank you.
I've added to my calendar.
So really, the only change seems to be for us is the November meeting.
so Susan, the second read meeting then generally, is there a clear designated date? Is it the next day like it is this coming one, or is it a week later?
They would announce it in their meeting, and
It
it's
could
not
be any-
advertised.
Okay,
Right.
it could be any of those
Right.
things. Okay.
Right.
I see.
Is the packet that was distributed here the same as was posted in the web link?
Yes,
Okay, so I don't have to compare the two.
right. It's the same. Yes, sir.
Had the same people that printed everything out, I thought, okay, go in.
It's easier to flip through it during
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
session.
So as far as as far as procedural items, those are the 2 items I needed to bring to your attention, was the revised calendar and then the reason for the special call public hearing.
Okay. Anybody have anything else in there? Okay, and then, so no other organizational procedural items, and we have one. We do have unfinished business, which is what we've got up on the wall.
The unfinished business is, there was a request for some additional training. So I talked with the chairman and we kind of put together a very quick schedule. This is kind of what we're aiming to do.
But an excellent one, I think.
Thank you
I
very
do
much.
think so. No, I do think that it hit the mark. We'll see what everybody else feels that way.
So our proposal at the moment is to kind of first do this short, there's a 9-minute video overview, and I preface that with 9 minutes so you'll know it's not that long. And it kind of gives a regional overview of LCI. So I brought that here with me tonight for you to see. Part 2, we would propose August the 7th, and that is, I have a meeting with the LCI manager in 2 weeks, and I'm going to ask her if she will come and kind of give a local aspect of LCI to this group. And actually it'll be my first time to meet her in a couple of weeks. So need to meet her first and then ask for a favor. So that's my plan. And hopefully give an opportunity for Q&A while she's here. So that's proposed for August 7th. And then following that in September would be a proposal for us to do a PowerPoint presentation with you all with all the design guidelines and how the overlay is implemented.
Just it doesn't affect this in any way, but is the zoning board of appeals asking for the same kind of thing, and is there some?
No, they haven't asked for it.
Again, that doesn't affect what I'll record in the Army Trust.
They have not. So with that, if you all feel okay with this proposal, this is what we've proposed to do. And if, with that said, if you'd like to move forward with the video tonight, it's 9 minutes.
So anybody have anything before we see the video?
No?
You good with that?
But I'd like to just build on Stan's question. Can we simply make these sessions open and available to the ZBA, give them specific invitation if they like? Seems like this would be very valuable background information for them as well.
I can certainly, we have work sessions with the ZBA too, and I can certainly make this available to them. I can let them know that the planning commission was concerned and would like to offer this to the ZBA, and we can go forward. And if they want to do this, we can certainly offer
Sure.
them the same thing.
Okay.
And do
I
it
think that's
during
a
their,
great idea to offer it to
during
them, whether
their,
they take it up on it, take up the 2
during their work
Yeah.
sessions as well. Does that work?
Anybody else have any?
Good.
Great.
I
And I want to
can't-
commend you. I think that this is certainly, I don't know what anybody, the other commission, but I certainly, when we had a meeting last month and we were talking about this is certainly what I had in mind. So you hit the mark.
Good, yay, okay. All right, so I can't guarantee that I can operate this correctly because I'm not
We're gonna
a
switch seats so I can see.
technical person, but Mr. Siegel is.
You want me to switch this off for you?
I think I might be able to see it. I think
Yeah.
Mr. Funny wants
Yeah.
to.
I just wanted to add a couple of footnotes. Very good video, and we've used that a lot in our planning studios. Since '99, my firm has worked on like 27 to 28 LCIs, and they miss a very important aspect of the video, which the video is good, but there's a very engaged community involvement process where the community is at the table helping the design team come up with the vision for their community. They didn't touch on that in the video, but that's a big part of the actual LCI process is having several series of meetings all the way into design workshops where we bring them in and sit them around a table and say, where would you like to see parks, mixed-use housing, single-family housing. Another important piece, all of the LCIs include an element that looks at the economic and marketing study. So basically they go and do a thorough job at finding out what will this area, what can it afford to be sustainable in the future. So that's another big piece where we bring economists in and they
Robert Charles Lesser.
they rub the crystal ball and they tell us this area can afford this much single family housing in this price bracket, this much retail, commercial, they tell us everything, and then we have to come up with the puzzle and put it together to basically create the area. But their information really feed into our process, which gives us an opportunity to say to the community, this is how this area can be sustained.
Right, and I know, I guess, Jack, you may have been involved before when it was going through the process with the submittal for the LCI, for the Brookhaven Peachtree overlay.
Yeah, without going into the details of the Brookhaven Peachtree overlay, why don't you just tell everybody, you're involved, when you started with it, and that just.
Well, we started in 2004. Joel Putterman, who's a professional planner with Jacobs, he, in the planning community got wind of MARTA was getting ready to put out an RFP to redevelop the MARTA Station parking lot. And knowing how that works, that was just going to happen to us. MARTA does not seek public input, at least not in a serious way. So he called on some other professionals, planning professionals in the neighborhood, and said, hey, we need to get on top of this. We need to come up with a plan, or else it's just going to happen to us. So we formed the BPCA, the Brookhaven Peachtree Community Alliance, and then we went to DeKalb County and said, we need an LCI study. DeKalb would have to come up with $20,000 match, $80,000 ARC money, $20,000 DeKalb money. And they agreed, and we actually wrote the proposal. Joel wrote most of it because he was used to doing that kind of thing because there was a very short time horizon at that point and to jumpstart it. And then the CAB's Office of Economic Development spearheaded it from there. We got to sit on the interview committee, and Urban Quad was the firm chosen, did a very good job, led the whole public process as you mentioned. And it's not just putting out word to neighborhood organizations. it's stakeholders. They want all stakeholders involved. So MARTA's at the table, Oglethorpe University was at the table, the library, the CAP library system was at the table, and of course all the other, any business owner in the district was notified and asked to attend and participate. And then of course all the neighborhood organizations, so homeowners as well. So it tries to be a very broad-based planning process.
Jack, what was the timeframe? Was that like?
That was in 2004, and it extended into 2005. 2006, the LCI was actually completed and published and accepted at DeKalb County. And then in 2007, maybe it was late 2005 actually, that it was around December 2005, January 2006. The dates are all on the VPCA website if you want specifics, but then in 2007 is when it was actually codified with the overlay zoning district. In other words, adopted into zoning code. Up to that point, it was a plan and recommendations, but it wasn't zoning code.
So it got written into the code in 07, and then we inherited that with
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then we just amended it, and here we are, modern day.
Right.
Well, and then
So-
over the last meeting last month was the
Right.
first amendments that were.
Right.
And frankly, nothing was done under that zoning district until really about the time, just shortly before the city of Brookhaven.
That was
came
my
to
next
being.
question. So under that ordinance, once the code was written, nothing really had been done under it until just prior to the incorporation, right?
Because of the Great Recession came and just.
Right, market timing being
Yeah,
what it was.
yeah.
Okay.
I think, I'm trying to think of another project. Certainly there were some projects proposed that were stalled, such as Walgreens, which wanted variances.
When did some of this program of projects start? Was that?
That was in 2006, and that's
You're talking about
another
town
story, but
Brookhaven.
that was done before the zoning was in place, but after the LCI study had been accepted. So it was kind of a melange on one side. They were encouraged to develop it according to LCI recommendations, but on the other side, there was no
They weren't held to it.
firm zoning code, and they were not held to it.
So the meetings that I will have coming up with ARC about this LCI will be about the status of the funding, the implementation, all of these things. And so I can let you all know, report back to you about that, and then also ask if she would do us the favor of coming to a meeting and discussing it further.
And I guess for full disclosure, we didn't have anything to do with the overlay district, but my firm did partner with Urban Collage, and we did the traffic and
Okay.
transportation planning component
Great.
of the LCI.
Okay.
But nothing with the overlay district.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I missed the first few minutes, but I have a sort of a basic question on what constitutes a work session. Is this considered a public meeting?
Yes.
So is that why we're being,
This is a public meeting, but in this public meeting, which is a work session, the commission does not engage with the public. It's a public work session for the commission.
It's not a public hearing. So this is really just for us to understand or work through issues, but because there are
right, if the
four of
public
us.
is invited
It's open to
to
the public.
observe,
Sure.
Yes.
and the meeting is recorded, someone can
And reported.
go on to that.
And reported.
There's the public right there.
By the way, and reported.
She's the messenger.
Okay, so I understand that.
Right.
And just one more point about LCI and the funding aspect. It's federal money tied to a nexus between transportation and land use. You apply for the money through ARC, or the city, any city or jurisdiction applies for the money through ARC. You go through a process, and that's what happened. That's where we are. So that's part one
I
of
can
the
elaborate on that just a little bit,
Okay.
it might help. Is a prototypical project that was funded was in the city of Decatur at the Avondale MARTA station, where they had a development plan for it. And they had a lot of parking, and the development was to happen on the parking lot. So they received a $3 million grant through ARC from implementation funds to build structured parking so that it would free up the site for development of mixed income,
Does the municipality receive it?
yes, mixed income housing, yes.
To do the construction?
To do the construction, yeah. I mean, the rest of that story is that at the time, all those funds came through GDOT, okay, because they're the federally recognized transportation people in Georgia. So it had to go through GDOT, but the ARC allocated the funds. Well, once they came through GDOT had to apply all of their specifications to the funds. which is a huge amount of both red tape and work rules and various things, which drove up the cost significantly of doing the parking deck. So the parking deck not only had to meet MARTA specifications, which called for stainless steel elevator facilities and so on for ultimate durability, but they had to meet all of GDOT's procurement procedures, fair labor practices, all the things that GDOT had to do. So the cost went, which was anticipated an estimated $3 million, went from $3 million to $6 million. And effectively it stalled the project until it ultimately torpedoed the project because it took 2 or 3 years to working around trying to find additional funds or cut the rest of the project to meet the budget. And during that time, bond costs went up significantly and the numbers no longer worked.
Okay.
So,
Well, good.
but GDOT is no longer in that stream, so those funds are.
So to recap where we are, this particular part of the work session was, I believe you weren't in attendance last month, if I remember you were out last month. So this is the staff's response to our request last month to start our training process so that we are very intimate with the living centers initiative, the VPCA, the overlay, and what's going on. So the staff came back with this 3-step process, starting out with kind of this general discussion, regional LCI, next month bringing it down closer to home, so closer to Brookhaven, closer to more specifics, and then in September, another piece, so that over these 3 meetings, we will all become as knowledgeable as some people are in here because of the importance of the overlay to us. So with that, and we want to be cognizant of the time because we have the public meeting starting at 7. So I'll ask just quickly if there was outside of this, is there anything else that because we could probably talk about this for hours and should at some point.
Let me ask,
Oh, sorry.
the sort of the end result, at the end of this, is the goal of the city, or the planning commission, or whatever entity, to have some sort of recommended master plan?
That is not
Developing
that is not the purpose of this training. The purpose of this training is because the overlay is a part of our ordinance today. It's training for us, and I'm looking that way. And the answer is yes, the city is going to be undertaking revisions and modifications. We had the first revision last month with the first text amendments that were passed by the council. So this is really, the purpose of this training is just to make us more knowledgeable in our role as planning commissioners.
Okay, but at the end of this meeting, and then the next meeting, which will be the 3rd, explaining sort of LCI and the overlay and
Right.
how they interact, is the goal for us, or the city, to have some sort of master plan in mind? Because right now, the
No.
overlay
that's
is
different.
like the
That's-
little building blocks. You can go this high, you can do this dense, but it doesn't
No,
create any
That is-
recommended.
that is not the purpose of these work sessions.
Later in the year, we will let an RFP for comprehensive plan, master plan, land use plan, transportation plan, parks and recreation master plan. We're also going to be letting a request for an economic development action plan along Buford Highway. Those are separate, larger comprehensive planning issues. The purpose of this training was a request by the Planning Commission to just provide more information and have an education forum for the Planning Commission on, well, what is LCI and what do we have, and with the Brookhaven Peachtree overlay, what does that mean? So we put together a 3-step process of the regional overview, which was just this 9-minute video. The second part will be a request to ask for the LCI manager from ARC to come to the commission and talk more about our own LCI that we do have in place. And then the third part will be the actual PowerPoint presentation of the overlay and the specific design criteria that is currently in place.
But it is just for our education to make us better at what we.
So that we can respond when we
Yes,
start to get
That's correct.
responses to the RFP and so
There
on.
you go.
Gotcha.
All right,
Okay.
and
Mr. Chairman, at the risk of being duplicative, or duplicative, I think
Did what happened?
is the right word.
repeating yourself.
looking at the timetable as proposed by Director Can here, that it's going to take us to September 4th. That's going to be after the dates, obviously, coming up in July for the Century Center. There are likely some concepts that would be useful from an orientation and briefing perspective in advance of that midpoint July meeting with Century Center. I'm assuming this timetable is what it is, but when will we have the packets on
You will receive your packet on July 11th.
July 11th? Okay, and y'all will be available for question Q&A if we need to between
Sure.
that and July 18th,
Mhm.
because there might just be some issues in there that we want to take a look at.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is so, okay.
I'd like to just build on that. If I hear what Adrian's suggesting, we may need more background and some discussion time on that as well. Is that one of the things you're suggesting about the Century
Yeah, is
Center
there-
annexation?
what is from a protocol perspective, I would like to have a dedicated, 1 hour, if we had even that, to 2 hours of time to kind of discuss some of these issues with staff. Is that something we can kind of come in with?
Well, let's make sure we're talking about two different things. So the LCI and the discussion of that is
Yes.
off to the side, that's finished, because Century Center
Right.
is not a part of the LCI. So are you requesting
Is that
a
correct?
work session? So are you requesting a work session because you anticipate there'll be questions and more background for the Century Center?
And I'm just going based on what Susan said briefly with that small graphic on the Century Center master plan. That master plan has some concepts in it that were derived in part from LCI? or-
No,
No.
no, that master plan recognizes the existing built environment
Okay.
of Century Center, and also has different pods laid out in it. You're going to get on the web.
And there's no linkage that would be LCI or overlay
No, sir.
related?
There's no
No, sir.
connection between
No,
the two.
sir.
Okay.
So what's the
However, I'd like
function of, I'm
You
sorry,
want it? That's,
what's the function of the planning commission as it relates to approving or making a recommendation to approve annexation of the Century Center?
You okay?
The annexation goes before the mayor and council only. It does not come to the planning commission, but the zoning does. The city council the city has initiated the rezoning of the subject 100 acre tract. So it's required to go through the zoning process. So the Century
So the
Center
rezoning
rezoning,
will happen concurrently with the annexation?
it will be
Is it a
on
condition
the,
of the annexation?
I'm sorry,
Is it a condition of the annexation?
it's not a condition of the annexation, it's a requirement that the city zone the property. So it will be on the agenda, council agenda on the same night, and it'll go through a sequential process and timing process. The annexation does not come before the planning commission, the zoning does. The annexation goes before the council, and the zoning goes before the council.
Okay.
And
So let
it's-
me see if I can recap on that piece, because we'll need to move on. So what was said earlier was that if you think about it, we have a map, and there's this block of land, and if that property becomes part of the city, there's no zoning attached. There's a zoning attached to it from DeKalb County, which was part O and I and part O and D.
Correct.
And the proposed zoning on that map that would become Brookhaven, if the annexation were to pass through the council, would be PC3. And that's what this work session, I'm sorry, not the work session, that's what the special called meeting on July 18th will address.
Okay.
And the city
Is that-
proposed that zone classification because we don't have OI?
We do have OI and OD,
Right.
and the county, they apparently must have had some sluts, special land use permits to approve their taller buildings. But we're bringing it in as PC3 because it allows for that built environment and future mixed use and development without sluts, special land use
And the
permits.
property owners, that's?
The
what
property
they want?
owners filed the petition to come into the city with 100%. 100% of the property owners want to come into the city, and the property owners agree with the PC3
Okay.
zoning.
I'm going to be I'm going to not be in attendance on the July meeting, but I think you make an excellent point with background, and that is that you might consider the staff, we might ask the staff to make sure we have a work
We
session.
will definitely have a work
Work
session.
session prior to bring everybody more up to speed on what.
Presumably, public will be there and will want to be.
And we may need to back it up to 5 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
give us a
So
little more
we'll do
time.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's an excellent suggestion.
My concern with having the work session at 5 o'clock and decision at 7 o'clock is, this raises, I think it's a very interesting planning problem, and it brings up some very interesting planning concepts, and, what kind of density we could expect, how it might redevelop under PC3 or additionally develop under PC3. But it might take a little thought, and we might have some questions that can't be answered instantly.
Well, do you have a preferred method? What would you prefer?
I would prefer to have a planning session a few days ahead of time, so that then, our work session, I should say, so that you could lead us through the PC3 and what the vision is and how it might redevelop and
I'd like a sleep on it type of a gap
Yes.
between.
And then when we come back and have a work session before the
here's-
hearing, then we have had time to do research or
Let's talk about
formulate
dates
questions.
then.
Yeah, so
Dates
here's what
July
I would,
3rd.
here's what I would suggest. The date of that, I'm not gonna be here for it, so. But the.
Could you be here for the planning, the work session?
I'm leaving next week, so I won't be here I won't be back.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's 6:23.
I'm sorry.
It's 6:23, we have to go over the rest of these items for tonight. I'm
Okay,
just
so
reminding
we've got
you.
it, yeah, so we're gonna finish up here really quick. So what date is the packet coming at? Will the packet be ready?
July 11th.
July the 11th. So I would propose you need time to get the packet, you're gonna need a few days to recommend, to look at it. I would suggest you consider, and then let's move on pretty quickly, maybe a work session on like the 15th or the 16th.
The 15th works best, I'm traveling on the 16th and 17th.
So,
15th is just.
Probably.
Yes,
That's a Monday.
early, if we can do it fairly early.
so let's,
7:30.
yeah, let's wrap this up, and if you would propose, knowing that now that pulling, the dates of people, plus people aren't here, if it's possible, if it fits into the schedule, if we can get it done, it sounds like they would like to have
On the 15th.
on the 15th.
At what time?
What do you think?
5?
5 is fine. Yeah, I think 5.
That's
Okay.
good.
That's good with
Fine.
you.
Excellent.
You won't be here.
All right, so,
Okay.
so he said,
Thank
so
you.
that would be the
Okay.
suggested,
Okay.
and let's put that in there.
And
It's a great
I might
idea.
ask that if anyone have questions, email those, since you won't be here, email those to me and I'll compile one list of rolling questions.
That
and
would
all
be
the questions are
great.
captured.
Yeah.
Because I know pinging you with a lot of questions, email it to me and I'll capture it all and then I'll send
Okay,
it
great.
to you.
And I will put in my plug,
That works as,
Yes.
Protocol.
I'll put in my plug, even though I'm not here.
yeah,
Copy.
please. Oh, yeah.
All right, now let's move, we need to move on because we're gonna run out of time here, so, I'm sorry, we probably spent a lot of time talking about these kinds of things, so,
I appreciate
but
it.
we do have
The
a,
business at hand.
that's right. So, any other unfinished business? No? All right, and new business, so now let's move on to new business of tonight's agenda, the
Yes.
discussion, okay.
We have one rezoning application and 2 text amendments. The rezoning application is case 1301. It's the property at 1475 North Three Hills Road. This is the application that was deferred, and the property owner, the property purchaser went away, and there's a new property potential purchaser. The plan you have is from R75 to RA8. It's for a 31-unit townhome project. The staff has recommended approval. You have the full package there in front of you. I probably don't need to say a lot.
Down
but-
from 40 previously. 40
Yes, it
units.
was 40, it's now 31. The land use plan calls for suburban, which is 8 units per acre. This proposal is 8 units per acre. There are no variances requested on this particular site plan, and we have recommended approval with, I think, 15 conditions.
And let me also comment while you're looking that up. I'm not sure you're here when. So there were some emails that some citizens who sent, and it's in the packet. But there are 2 others that came in this evening that are on your phone. There's no way to print them here. One in opposition and one in favor. So if you get an opportunity between now and I think we all need to, we need to take the opportunity to read those.
We'll have to print those for the council package, but it came en route on the way here, so there's no way for me to print it.
So there are 2 in here and 2 on your phone, and again, I think all of them, I'm sure you've read the ones that were printed, and it's worth reading the one, and not just worth it, but I think we have an obligation to read the ones that were sent to us electronically. I'm sorry, Susan.
That's okay. There are 15 conditions. The applicant, according to their attorney, has agreed to all 15 conditions recommended by the staff. I did receive late correspondence, which the attorney will present to you tonight that I haven't even had time to fully vet. Howard, I'm looking for it.
What's neat?
The email that came from Doug Dillon this afternoon with the 7 conditions that are proposed.
You had that earlier, I think.
The,
So amendment to the,
oh, I think it's right here. Here we go. At around 3 o'clock, there was a request for additional conditions to be considered, which Mr. Dillon will put on the record,
okay.
in addition to the 15 that they have agreed to. And very quickly looking at them, and I'll state this on the record, item 4 and item 7, which you haven't seen because I've just seen it, are a couple that we have concern over. Number 4 says, if individual garbage pickup is not an option, any compactor for trash or garbage shall be located in such a way as to create minimal impact on adjacent properties.
That's a condition that they proposed?
This is one that they proposed, but it would need to probably go further and say, as approved by sanitation services, because we can't, it has to be able to be located and situated in a way that it can be accessed. So we would need to qualify that statement.
Okay.
The last condition that he's proposed, number 7, which I very quickly read, was on-site stormwater will be controlled, engineered in such a way so as to reduce off-site flows to levels less than those flows which exist on the property in the undeveloped condition. Typically, engineering as pre and post runoff remain the same, so I have a little bit of concern over how that's worded. Mr. Dillard will need to address that tonight, but I'm a little concerned with that wording. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have recommended approval of this case, and if you have any questions.
Will we get a copy of those additional 7 conditions? Is there a copy?
Mr. Dillard needs to present that to you. I mean, I just quickly printed it when I was running out the door.
Okay.
Do we have
There is
He'll
a
need to-
copy
he'll-
we have a
sheet here
runner?
in premises?
There's not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Do we have a runner or someone that, with access to a printer or keys to the facility that can get something?
I don't have keys to that room.
Okay.
I think they keep things in there that we can't have access to or be around, so I can't.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've reviewed the site plan, especially compared to the old one. It works better for the neighborhood, but one of the concerns or wishes that I would suggest is that unit number 1, which is the unit that is most visible from North Druid Hills Road, be architecturally oriented so that it looks like a single-family home. So you maintain that single-family home streetscape along North Druid Hills as opposed to it looking like the side of a house, because the front of the home is oriented towards that interior drive. But there's a lot of exposure on North Druid Hills. It would be very easy for them to design that first unit so that it appears to look more like a single-family home.
I think that's certainly something in the discussion after they make the presentation that you could ask the applicant.
But how do we, because we get a packet that shows the staff's recommendations, the 15 conditions.
Mhm.
How are we able to sort of communicate to you that this is something that, I would consider to be, an important item to add to that list?
You need, well, I mean, you're bringing it up now. It's something that should be stated on the record. And as a planning commission member, you're in that position, that unique position to offer that as an additional condition.
And you
And
can
then
make
that
that a
is-
motion as part, before, we'll ask, as we ask for motions to approve or to defer or to, as we ask for the motion, you can certainly, make a motion to amend conditions.
And anything that you recommend or propose, the applicant's either going to agree to it or not agree to it, but in any event, what you propose will go to the council for them to also fully vet. So anything the planning commission wants to offer up on the table will be transmitted to the mayor and council.
Okay, but should I have done this to the staff via email a week ago or something?
No.
Because you've already prepared the 15 and they've already agreed to it.
No, this is the avenue for you to do that right now.
This is the applicant's opportunity to present to us and our opportunity to, after listening to the public and and representing ourselves as commissioners as well. Going to the applicant might, right there in front say, absolutely, I agree, you know, put it in as part of conditions. The applicant might say, no way. You might, because of that, then we'll determine whether you feel comfortable voting in favor of it or in favor of deferring or what, but that's part of the public process.
This is that correct avenue for you to make that proposal.
I understand what you're getting at, is that, well, it'd be nice
It would
if
have
you
been a
could do
lot
this ahead-
easier if it
lot
had
easier
been
if
on
you
the
did this ahead of
first
time.
15 list so that it
Yeah.
doesn't become an item that then is subject to deferral or other
Right.
discussion.
But that's just not proper, I understand.
I have two quick, I don't know what's wrong with my voice today. I have
We're
two
going to
quick
wrap it up in
things.
5, so go ahead, you're first.
But I want us
Think
to
about other
pay,
questions.
I want us to pay particular attention to the recommendation. I think it's important that we address
Yes.
these if there are concerns, and I don't want
Yes.
to rush through it
Okay.
because we're forced with answering the question,
Okay.
and we're forced to making sure that we have addressed these so that the community is comfortable with the recommendation.
Okay.
Item number 4, it states that prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit, the owner developer shall submit a completed traffic analysis prepared by a registered engineer to determine two things, the need of a left turn lane and a right turn lane along North Jersey Road. I would make that statement more of, to include at a minimum these two items, because when they do the full traffic engineering study, it will also determine if there's a signal warranted, but when you limit it to those two items, the engineer doesn't have to do that analysis. Not that a signal is going to be needed, but I think the public needs to understand that that is going to be reviewed.
But if you, may I?
Sure.
I would recommend that if you want the traffic warrant signal included, that you should state that and ask for that condition to be amended. Because if you say to include at a minimum, then that doesn't specify what you're after.
Well, I think what I would like to do, because the traffic engineering study process includes a whole host of stuff, I would like to not just spell out two, but just let them do a full traffic engineering study, which will include the signal warrant analysis, the safety analysis,
and-
the left turn need.
You need to
right-
state that.
Yeah, and and I think we're saying the same thing, is that that's a valid concern. It's certainly one that shows your experience and needs, as a motion, we state that in the public meeting. And that's the opportunity to actually make that change.
Can we refer to it just in generalities of traffic management?
Do
control
anything
systems?
as a
You
commissioner.
can say systems, it's a traffic engineering
All
study.
right,
but when
you had
do-
one other item, so.
Yeah, one other item, item number 7, and Susan, you may tell me that the city ordinance doesn't require this. When we have a 5-foot sidewalk, 5 foot is pretty narrow when you're in this environment, especially when you have a lot of pedestrian movement. So if you have the mother with the stroller and you have a husband and wife walking to meet them, someone's going to have to stop and let them by. We've been looking at 6-foot sidewalks to make it more comfortable when you have high pedestrian activities. What's the city ordinance on that?
It's 5 feet.
It's 5 feet. Okay.
And so we really don't really have to list this condition, but we listed it to put them on notice.
Gotcha.
And I'd like to say that I think during the public session, we should not in any way rush. I agree with you completely. I think in here, you know, I apologize, I'm trying to kind of move along because we have a public meeting to attend. But a lot of these discussions is exactly what we need to do in the public meeting. And as a commissioner, if you feel that that needs to be changed, something in these recommendations, then during the public session, we need to certainly do that. So you won't get me, and if I do, you can hit me on the side of the head and tell me I'm not going to rush, because we will not rush in the public meeting, in the regular meeting. And then last, we'll do this as the last.
I have a procedural question, which is, Mr. Funny has proposed a couple possible text changes to conditions. Mr. Francoeur's proposed one. I have a couple that I would propose. This could get very complicated. How is someone going to make a master motion that includes all the possible changes? Just how do we do this? How do we break it down into manageable steps to make it
As the
complete?
chair, I will tell you, as a presiding
Okay.
chair at this point, whether I'm right or wrong, I believe Robert's Rules of Orders, which prevails, would say that you would bring up a motion on an item, and then there will be a second on that motion. So if the first motion would be, there might be a motion to approve, deny, or to defer the application. Another motion, one of you might bring up a motion that says, I'd like to move that item number 6 be changed to so-and-so. and we go through the same thing, discussion of that item, and approval, or denial, if I'm looking over there.
Well,
I believe, and you have to do the motions first before you get to the main, I believe that's right.
Here's what I would recommend. I would like to recommend denial of the application. That's
Yeah.
one option. Second, or whatever. All right, or I would like to recommend approval of this request for rezoning, subject to the conditions recommended by the staff, with the change to number 4 to read as follows. There could just be one. And then there could be a second, and the person could say, I'd like to offer, are you willing to substitute your motion to add this additional change? And you go from there.
But yes, it is going to be complicated if 7 of us have 7 changes, but this is a complicated and a serious issue.
And you're not making a decision right now, you're having a discussion because you're making the decision out
Right.
there.
And what Susan's saying, I think, is in the end, it has to be one motion that recommends approval with
Yes.
these conditions, and it lists all the chip conditions as we've altered them or whatever. And my point is simply that it's going to require someone to have a very good memory, whoever makes that motion, to make sure that if we agree on all these changes to the conditions, that they're all incorporated into that one motion.
And I will, as I go through it, do
Okay.
my best to repeat as we approve. But each one we have an opportunity. You can include them all in one time, or you can do them individually and vote on them individually.
No,
And
that
a
I
motion
don't
can
know if
also
you can.
fail due to the lack of a second.
Yeah.
And then you can say, do I have a new motion on the floor?
Right.
So-
Well, let me ask Susan, you're suggesting that you could vote on each condition
Yeah.
separately.
You could.
Is that your understanding, Susan?
Oh, no, not each condition
no,
recommended
no.
here.
That-
Each motion, you can vote on each motion. So you might get John might say, I move to approve this amended, with item number 4 amended as such. And before we have a second.
Is there a second to the motion?
Is there a second? And he said, no, and then you can say, I would also like to amend item number 3.
Mr. Funny, would you be willing to amend
Yeah.
your motion to include this
So
revision?
substitute motion, or
And
Mr.
then-
Funny amends
Right.
his motion.
Right.
So you either vote on yours, or you vote on both of them, or you vote, it just depends on how.
Well, but then, what that means then is if we have an initial motion, we have it amended 5 times,
You couldn't.
before the final vote, Stan, you're gonna have to sum it all up and say, this is the motion on the floor.
I
And
think
it
that's why we
includes
have a.
This, and this.
But that's
Just-
better because you have one motion.
Just speak
Right,
slowly.
you have to end up with one motion, I think.
And when we first
All I'm
started.
pointing out, it's gonna be
Okay.
very
Yeah.
complicated.
All right, and when we first started this, we had this very discussion with one of the other commissions that went through something very similar. And we'll do our best to do it, and believe me, I'll do my best to come to word, but I will flub it as well, and you'll have to correct, I might have to be corrected at some time. But we need to get it on the record correctly.
Mhm.
We need to vote on it as it's on the record.
Mhm.
So, yes, you're right. All right, is there anything else, or can we, all right, so do we even need a motion I guess we need a motion to adjourn?
We have 2 more items.
Oh, we have 2 more, I'm sorry, well, we have a motion to go to the next item,
Lots of time, 20 minutes.
I'm sorry,
How much time do we have?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. That's right, so the next item so after that, there'll be 2 text amendments, right, to discuss. And you want to give some briefing on the height amendment, RZ 13-03, 901099?
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we take it out of order and do
Sure.
the sign ordinance first, because it takes 30 seconds?
Go ahead.
And I don't really know if you all really want to see this. You've got a copy of the signed text amendment in your package. The sign ordinance is not part of the zoning ordinance, but we're taking it through the zoning procedures process because it's linked to the zoning ordinance in such a constitutional way, and that was the direction from our legal team. You have a copy of the text. This is actually the red line that shows you the track changes, which actually shows you what was changed. And then I'm going to explain what that means. I think I just gave it to you, I'm sorry.
You did, I'll pass one.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
yes,
Basically, the purpose of the text amendment is to ensure that if someone submits a sign application that meets all of the sign requirements, if they are proposing to operate or operating a business that's illegal, this language has been written to allow us not to issue a sign permit.
Or to revoke one that's been previously issued.
Yes. If we find that a business is operating unlawfully, the way this language has been written, it allows us to not issue the permit or revoke the permit. That's the basis of it. Okay. Can we move on to the other
Next
text
item- The
amendment?
next item is the next ordinance, a height ordinance. It changed from 35 to 40 feet.
Well, the purpose of this text amendment is kind of threefold. The first is to provide a definition of height different from what's currently in the ordinance. The second aspect is to increase the maximum height for single-family residential from 35 feet to 40 feet. And the third aspect is to delete the threshold requirements that are currently in the zoning ordinance. So what that means is that the way, our current height limit for single-family residential is 35 feet. And the way it's currently measured, it's taken from the threshold to the peak of the roof.
Threshold being the front door ordinance.
The threshold in our ordinance means the front door threshold, but you're allowed to go 2 feet below the threshold or 2 feet above the threshold to establish your threshold. I know that sounds kind of strange, but the way the current ordinance is written, it's measured from the threshold. The threshold can be 2 feet below,
Grade, you mean 2 foot above or below grade?
2 feet below the established threshold. You can say, well, I want my threshold to be 2 feet below or 2 feet above the existing threshold
Oh, if you're on a, this is
Of
on a
the
remodel
previous
or?
of the previous home.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
And it says that, the language says that you measure the height limit and the current cap is 35 feet from those points. That's what it does. The proposal is to allow increase from 35 to 40, which is on its face. But also the definition has been rewritten, and I thought I had extra copies, but I don't see them here. I'll have to pass it down. I'm sorry about that. If you want to take it, pass
This
it
is
down.
part 5, this elevation of residential thresholds.
The building height definition has been rewritten to measure building height for, there's currently a definition for single family and non-single family in the existing ordinance. We've gotten rid of both of those, and now there's just one. The new definition says the way you measure height is from taking the average elevation around the structure, around all sides of the building, to the mean height level of the eaves and ridge of a gable, hip or gambrel roof, and to the coping of a flat roof. Basically, what that means is that, let me show you this. I may actually have extra copies. I had them. No. What that means is, this is not the height, this is just an example. Under the previous definition, where the door is, you would measure either 2 feet below or 2 feet above and go straight to the tip. Under the new definition, you'll take the average elevation around all sides of the building and you'll measure from that average grade to the mean height level. So basically, there's a triangular portion of the roof line, if you're not a flat roof, that is exempt from the height calculation from the definition.
So in
It
effect,
gives a little more flexibility in design,
but it has the effect of increasing the
Yes.
overall height, because now you're not measuring to the apex, you're measuring to something,
To the main height
to
level.
the mean height level.
Right, and I apologize for my very rudimentary drawing. I'm not an architect, Mr. Conrad, you are, but, so basically, in trying to show the difference, under the threshold definition, which we're proposing to no longer have, if this baseline is a ground elevation of 900 feet. So you could be 898 or 902. And that would put you at 933 or 935 or 937 if your limit, I'm talking from the ground elevation, if your limit was 35 feet. So the most you could ever be under the threshold elevation requirement would be 937. If you went to 40 feet, the most you would ever be would be 942, because there's no alleviation for the type of roof or the architecture. It's just the tip, boom, that's it. We're proposing for this threshold measurement to go away. And so these are just examples. If your average elevation, if your ground was flat, if your land was flat, which would be 900, you would measure from the mean, and anything above that, above the mean, would be exempt based on your roof design for both 35 or 40. If your backyard elevation were higher than your front yard elevation, you would start the measuring point. Let's say your front yard was 900 and your backyard were 910. Your average would be 905, so you would push your baseline up to 905. And so anything above this point, based on how your roof pitch is designed, would be exempt from the mean. From the mean point and above, you would be exempt. Currently, there's no provision in the ordinance to allow for a variance procedure. So this new definition of height and allowing someone to take their measurement from the average elevation around all sides of the building and then go to the mean height level and exempting from the mean height up gives some flexibility in design.
So how's it done today? Because I walk around the neighborhood.
Today,
And there are lots of buildings that are above 30, that are more than 35 feet.
and the answer to that is, we are a new city. We have inherited DeKalb County's regulations. There's practice and there's policy. And what we're getting hit with in the office is, well, but I could do that in DeKalb County, why can't I do that here? Well, I could get a variance in DeKalb County, why can't I do that here? But they couldn't get a variance in DeKalb County. So they were operating a practice on a law that did not exist. So we're here to create a method to allow some flexibility in design.
From the road, you mean?
So that's the purpose of the text
To
amendment.
institutionalize what,
To create a law
okay to law.
that allows a provision to give some flexibility in design.
Good.
So if I'm a home builder or a multifamily developer, I'm happier about this, right? This change.
Yes.
We're proposing.
Yes.
And if I'm the next door neighbor of my 50s ranch house that they, now it's gonna get torn down and so big tall, am I meaningfully upset about this change, or is this really pretty nominal?
I don't know how to answer that because it depends on the position of the homeowner that's in that house and what their plans are.
I will tell you,
Could
I'm
this
going to
be
be very
a
interested to find
four-story
out.
house?
I'm sorry?
This could be a four-story house, depending on the topography of the site. There's no
Aren't you limited
ordinance
to 3
or-
stories?
No, we'll let answer, I mean, is that,
Well, the house wouldn't be limited to 3 stories. It's really based on the architecture and the,
There's no story limit per se.
there's no story limit for single family homes. It's basically height and how you structure it and the roof pitch and all that.
Oh, I thought there was a story limit as well.
I thought that was deleted in this amendment.
Oh, I think you might be talking about, there is a story limit in the overlay.
Well, I know that, yeah. I thought just in general residential,
I actually thought you eliminated where it
I
said 2 stories.
apologize.
3 stories plus potentially a basement or subgrade level. But that's solely from memory from a long time ago. I don't know if I can actually find that in the code.
Mr. Chairman.
But I actually
I can
thought
give you
this
that
was,
answer in just one second. No, there's not a story limit in the zoning ordinance other than in the Brookhaven Peachtree overlay. There are provisions that throw development into a different review category in residential from a building code perspective. If you reach 3 stories or higher with residential, you get thrown into the commercial quote building review, so that might be what you're thinking of.
Part 3, Section 27543 says, is hereby amended to delete the first sentence. So the first sentence of the existing ordinance says the maximum range of structure will not exceed 2 stories.
Can you tell me where you are?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Page 49.
E2. Yeah.
Packet page 49.
Yeah, yeah, and at the top, it's part 3, and it deletes the reference to the 2-story.
Okay.
And you have 5 of those.
I mean, I have some thoughts on this as having done something like 100-some
It's up at the
single-family
very top.
homes in Brookhaven over the last several years, but not the last several years, but since 1980. But I might save them for the public meeting.
Yeah,
I guess, but-
Again, because I think a
the
lot of our,
removing the threshold kind of creates some issues that need to be thought about.
I think these are great discussions, and I'd certainly like to have more public, I'd like to have more residents. I'm hoping that we'll have people who understand that, because I think your question is this something that nobody's going to care, or is this something that's quite important to people in different parts of our city? And I think that's an excellent
One
point.
quick question.
I'm still going back to 27.543. 27.543 actually is an office commercial residential district. So that's the reason why you see that language in there.
In the standard R district, you're saying there isn't, it's a height limit, but not a story limit.
Right, okay.
So this was.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
All right, so my question, Director Cam, the elevation, hypothetical, walk me through this. Elevation at the curb or at the front yard is 900. The backyard starts at 900, goes up at a 45-degree angle to 980. What's the average elevation of the property? If it's flat on 3 sides
But
at
it's not,
900.
it's the grade, it's the elevation around the sides of the building.
Okay,
So you would go from the front elevation, outside exterior wall ground,
okay,
sides ground against the wall,
okay.
back ground
So
against the wall.
presuming it's 900 at the back door, but then goes out about 5 feet, then goes up, it's only counted as the 900 at the back door, that elevation
You,
in the computation of the average.
right, you would have to take points and go around the building to get that average elevation.
Okay. All right, so let's, yeah, I think we'll need to,
I mean, I understand, in practice, most of the homes are built with, where the backyard slopes down. So if I'm taking the average or the mean between the sides of the footprint of a house, where the front door is sitting at 900 and the terrace level is sitting at, 880,
Yeah.
I've just lowered the overall height of the front elevation of the house because now my measurement starts halfway down the hill. Is that right? Am I
and
looking
the
at that
effect is
correctly?
that, effect is a taller building.
No, it's a
And that's
shorter
exactly the issue we need to think about, because when you have a street like my street that goes down the edge of a side hill, the hill comes like this, it's on the creek. Effectively, you have houses on this side whose back side of the house is 12 foot below the front elevation, so your effective elevation is not only below the street to start with, but then you take another 6 feet to add, because you're averaging around the house. On this side, you're already above the street another 6 or 8 feet before you even come to the front elevation of the house. The grade continues to go up, so the rear elevation of the house is somewhat higher. So you're really accentuating, all the houses on the uphill side are going to be exceptionally tall. The houses on the downhill side are going to be penalized and be shorter. And so you just have to think about how, and that's where the threshold measurement kind of mitigates that or equalizes that.
Well,
I'd like to continue this discussion
Yeah.
in the regular meeting. I think it's going to come up, I think I'm certainly not finished hearing what.
Would you like a piece of pizza?
And so, are there any other items before we?
I just need a
No,
moment or two
no.
to read those letters. So,
Okay, and that's what I want to do. So I think we'll be starting in a few minutes.